Good morning, everyone. I want to remind you of something that I believe with all my heart. God will open the door you are asking for. I know that many of us at different points in our lives have found ourselves standing in front of a closed door, praying for it to open. Maybe you're waiting for that breakthrough, the opportunity, the relationship, or the healing. Perhaps you felt discouraged or even wondered if your prayers are being heard. But I want to tell you today that just because the door hasn't opened yet doesn't mean it won't. And just because it's closed doesn't mean it's locked forever. God is working in ways you can't always see, and in His perfect timing, He will open the door you are asking for. The key to understanding this truth is remembering that God's timing is always perfect. It's easy to get impatient when we've been praying and waiting for what feels like an eternity. But sometimes, when we're waiting for the door to open, God is preparing us for what's on the other side. The waiting season isn't wasted, it's part of the process. God is using that time to strengthen your character, build your faith, and prepare you for the incredible blessings He's about to pour into your life. Sometimes in life, we find ourselves in seasons of waiting for a breakthrough, waiting for an opportunity, waiting for the door we've been praying about to open. It can be challenging to keep faith when the door seems locked. But let me remind you today, God's timing is always perfect. When the time is right, no force on earth can stop what He has in store for you. Think about it. Every delay, every pause, every moment that feels like nothing is happening is not wasted. It's preparation. God isn't denying you, He's preparing you. When you're asking for that door to open, it's not just about the destination, it's about who you're becoming in the process. Because here's the truth: if the door opens too soon, before you're ready, it won't lead to your blessing, it could lead to your downfall. I once heard a story about a young man who dreamed of becoming a successful businessman. He prayed day and night for God to bless his plans and give him the opportunities he longed for. But year after year went by, and nothing seemed to change. He worked hard, but the door to his dreams didn't open. At times he felt frustrated, even doubting if God was listening. What he didn't realize was that while he was waiting, God was working. God wasn't ignoring him, He was preparing him. During that waiting period, the young man learned skills he didn't even know he needed. He developed patience, built stronger character, and grew in his faith. Eventually, an opportunity came along that was far greater than anything he had prayed for. When that door opened, he was ready to walk through it, not just with excitement, but with confidence and wisdom. That's how God works. He knows what you need better than you do. When you're asking for the door to open, He's looking at the big picture. He's not just thinking about what will bless you now, He's thinking about what will bless you for years to come. That's why we have to trust His process, even when we don't understand it. The waiting season is where your faith grows the most. It's in those moments of uncertainty that you learn to lean on God, to trust Him even when you can't see the full plan. It's like planting a seed in the ground. When you put that seed in the soil, you don't see it sprout overnight. There's a process happening beneath the surface. The roots are growing deep, the foundation is being set, and when the time is right, that seed will break through the ground and grow into something beautiful. When you're waiting on God to open the door, He's building your foundation. He's strengthening your faith, teaching you lessons, and preparing you for the blessings to come. Don't despise the waiting period. Don't let frustration take root in your heart. Instead, use that time to grow, to prepare, to deepen your relationship with Him. We think the waiting period means God has forgotten us. But let me tell you something: God's delay is not His denial. Just because the door hasn't opened yet doesn't mean it's not going to. Maybe it's not ready for you, or maybe you're not ready for it. But when it's time, God will open that door so wide, you'll wonder why you ever doubted. There's a scripture that says, "No good thing will He withhold from those who walk uprightly." That means if you're doing your part, living with integrity, keeping your faith strong, trusting God, even when it's hard, then you can rest assured that what's meant for you will find you. The right door will open at the right time, and no one will be able to shut it. If you're in a season of waiting right now, don't give up. Don't lose hope. The door you're asking for is not locked, it's just not time yet. Trust that God is working behind the scenes, putting all the pieces together, and when everything is ready, He'll open the door in a way that will leave you amazed. Keep preparing. Keep praying. Keep believing. When the opportunity comes, you don't want to find yourself unprepared. You want to be ready to step into all that God has for you. Remember, the waiting season isn't a wasted season, it's a growing season. God's plans for you are good. His timing is perfect. When that door opens, it will be better than anything you could have imagined. So stand firm in your faith, trust His process, and get ready. Because when God opens the door, you won't have to force it, you won't have to fight for it. It will open easily, and it will lead you straight into the blessings He's been preparing for you all along. Life has a way of testing our patience and faith. We pray, we believe, and we hope, but sometimes it feels like nothing is happening. The door we're asking God to open remains closed, and it's easy to feel discouraged. But let me remind you today, God hears your prayers. He sees your efforts, and He knows the desires of your heart. Just because the door hasn't opened yet doesn't mean it's not going to. It's all about timing. God's timing is not just good, it's perfect. When we're waiting, we often focus so much on the door itself that we forget about the work God is doing behind the scenes. What we see as a delay is often God's way of protecting us, preparing us, or aligning things to work in our favor. He doesn't just want to open a door, He wants to open the right door. If we rush the process, if we force something that isn't meant to be, we might find ourselves stepping into something we're not ready for, or worse, something that isn't truly meant for us. Think about the story of Joseph in the Bible. As a young man, Joseph had a dream that he would one day be in a position of great leadership. But before that dream came to pass, he endured years of hardship. He was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, and later falsely accused and thrown into prison. For years it seemed like the door to his destiny was locked tight. But what Joseph couldn't see at the time was that God was preparing him. Each challenge, each setback, was shaping him into the leader he needed to become. And when the time was right, God opened the door. Joseph didn't just step into his dream, he stepped into a purpose that was bigger than anything he could have imagined. That's how God works. He doesn't just think about what we want right now, He thinks about the big picture. He knows what we need to grow, to mature, and to handle the blessings He has for us. That's why the waiting period is so important. It's not a time to be frustrated or impatient, it's a time to prepare. While you're waiting for the door to open, don't just sit around wondering when it's going to happen. Use that time to grow. Develop your skills, strengthen your faith, and become the person who's ready for the opportunity when it comes. Sometimes, the reason the door hasn't opened yet is because God is still preparing you. He's molding your character, teaching you patience, and building the foundation for your future. There's a scripture that says, "Be faithful in the little things, and God will make you ruler over much." That means while you're waiting for the big door to open, be diligent with what's in front of you. Maybe you're praying for a promotion, but right now you're in a job that feels insignificant. Instead of complaining about where you are, give it your best. Show God that you're faithful with what He's already given you. When you prove that you can handle the little things, He'll know you're ready for the bigger blessings. And here's something else to remember: the waiting period isn't just about you. Sometimes God is working on other people or circumstances that are connected to your blessing. Maybe the person you're supposed to meet, the opportunity you're supposed to have, or the resources you need aren't ready yet. God is orchestrating everything so that when the door opens, it's not just good, it's better than anything you could have imagined. I think about the story of a woman who dreamed of starting her own business. She worked hard, prayed constantly, and even saved up money to make it happen. But every time she tried to move forward, it seemed like something got in the way. For years, she felt like she was stuck in a waiting room, wondering when God would open the door. What she didn't realize was that during that time, God was teaching her valuable lessons about patience, perseverance, and trust. When the opportunity finally came, it wasn't just a small door, it was a wide open path that led to a business far more successful than she had ever dreamed. That's the kind of God we serve. He doesn't just open doors, he exceeds our expectations. But it requires us to trust him even when we don't understand the timing. It requires us to stay faithful even when we don't see progress. And it requires us to prepare so that when the door opens, we're ready to walk through it with confidence. Don't let the waiting season discourage you. Don't let doubt creep in and steal your joy. Instead, focus on the promise. God has already lined up the right opportunities, the right people, and the right resources for your life. The door you're asking for will open, and when it does, you'll see why it had to happen in His time and not yours. Until then, keep praying, keep believing, and keep preparing. God is faithful, and He will not fail you. When the time is right, the door will open, and it will lead you to blessings greater than you can imagine. We find ourselves waiting for something we've prayed for, an open door, a new opportunity, a breakthrough that feels just out of reach. It's easy to feel frustrated, even discouraged, when the door doesn't open on our timeline. But what we must remember is that God's timing is always perfect. He knows exactly when to open the right door and how to prepare us for what's on the other side. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it's not going to happen. The delay doesn't mean denial, it simply means God is working behind the scenes, orchestrating everything for your good. Faith is essential in these moments of waiting. It takes faith to keep believing when there's no evidence that anything is changing. It takes faith to keep praying when it feels like nothing is happening. But the truth is, God sees your faith. He sees your perseverance, and He's working in ways you can't see. What looks like a delay is often God protecting you, aligning the right people, or preparing the circumstances so that when the door opens, it's not just good, it's exactly what you need. One thing we must understand is that God uses the waiting season to prepare us. Sometimes the reason the door hasn't opened yet is that we're not ready for it. He's not just concerned about giving us what we want, He's focused on shaping us into who we're meant to be. During the waiting period, He builds our character, strengthens our faith, and teaches us valuable lessons that we'll need when we step into the blessing. Think about David. Before he became king, he spent years tending sheep, facing battles, and waiting for his promise to come to pass. He was anointed as king when he was young, but he didn't step into that role right away. God used the waiting season to prepare him. David learned to trust God in the wilderness, to rely on Him in battle, and to lead with wisdom and humility. When the time was right, David didn't just walk through the door to his destiny, he ran through it, fully equipped for what lay ahead. This is why it's so important to remain faithful while we wait. The waiting season isn't just about what's coming, it's about what God is doing in you right now. Maybe you're praying for a new job, but God is asking you to be faithful with the position you have. Maybe you're asking for a new relationship, but He's teaching you to love yourself first. Whatever it is, God is watching how you handle what's in front of you. When you're faithful with the little things, He can trust you with more. Patience is also a key part of this process. It's not easy to wait when you're ready for the next step, but God's timing is always better than ours. He's never late, and He's never early. He opens the door when it's the right time, not just for you, but for everything connected to your blessing. Sometimes the people you're meant to meet or the resources you'll need aren't ready yet. God is working all things together, aligning the details, so that when the door opens, it's exactly as it should be. While you wait, it's important to keep a positive mindset. Speak words of faith over your life. Instead of saying, "This door is never going to open," declare, "I know the right door is on its way. I know God is working on my behalf." When you align your thoughts and words with His promises, you create an atmosphere for blessings to flow. And don't forget to prepare for the opportunity you're praying for. If you're asking for a promotion, develop your skills and be the best you can be in your current role. If you're praying for a new relationship, work on becoming the best version of yourself. Preparation is a sign of faith. It shows God that you're ready for the blessing when it comes. Remember that not every door is the right door. Sometimes we chase opportunities that look good but aren't part of God's plan. That's why it's so important to seek His guidance. Pray for wisdom to recognize the doors He's opening and the strength to walk away from the ones that aren't meant for you. When the time is right, God will open the door you've been praying for. It won't be something you have to force or manipulate. It will happen naturally, and it will exceed your expectations. You'll look back and realize that the waiting wasn't a setback, it was a setup for something greater than you imagined. Until then, keep believing, keep preparing, and keep trusting. God is faithful, and when He opens the door, no one can close it.
When you trust in God's perfect timing, you can rest assured that the door you're asking for will open at the right moment. It may not happen when you expect or in the way you envision, but His plan is always greater than anything you could imagine. The waiting season is not a time to doubt, it's a time to prepare, to grow, and to strengthen your faith. Remember, every delay has a purpose, every challenge is shaping you, and every closed door is leading you closer to the one He has prepared for you. Keep believing that God is working behind the scenes. Stay faithful in the small things. Speak words of faith over your life, and trust that He knows what's best for you. When the door opens, it will not just meet your needs, it will exceed your expectations. God is faithful to fulfill His promises, and the blessings He has in store for you will be worth every moment of the wait. So stay encouraged, keep moving forward, and know that when God opens the door, no one can shut it. There are times in life when we find ourselves waiting on God, hoping and praying for Him to open the door to the breakthrough we desperately need. Maybe it's the door to a new opportunity, a healing, or a relationship. It can be difficult to keep believing when nothing seems to be happening. But let me remind you today, just because you don't see movement doesn't mean God isn't working. He's lining up the right people, orchestrating the details, and preparing the path ahead. The door you're asking for is not forgotten. It's just waiting for the perfect moment to open. Faith is the foundation for trusting in this process. It's easy to have faith when everything is going smoothly, but real faith is tested in the waiting. When the door doesn't open right away, when you face delays or detours, that's when your trust in God's plan matters most. The delay doesn't mean denial. Sometimes the door is closed not because God is saying no, but because He's saying not yet. He knows what you need, and He knows the best timing for it to arrive in your life. Think about it like a puzzle. When you're putting together a puzzle, some pieces don't make sense at first. They don't seem to fit, and you wonder why they're there. But when the puzzle is complete, you realize every piece had a purpose. That's how God works in your life. Every moment, every delay, every challenge, every closed door is a part of His bigger picture for you. You may not see it now, but trust that He's arranging the pieces for something beautiful. While you're waiting for the door to open, don't sit idly by. The waiting season is not a wasted season. It's a time for preparation. Use this time to grow, to develop your skills, to build your character. Sometimes the reason the door hasn't opened yet is because God is still preparing you. He's getting you ready for what's on the other side. You don't want to step into an opportunity you're not prepared for. I once heard about a young woman who dreamed of becoming a teacher. She prayed for years for an opportunity to get a job at her dream school, but nothing seemed to happen. Instead of giving up, she used that time to volunteer, to take extra training courses, and to hone her skills. Years later, not only did she get a position at the school, but it was a leadership role that was far beyond what she had originally prayed for. Looking back, she realized that if the door had opened earlier, she wouldn't have been ready for the blessing. That waiting period wasn't wasted, it was preparation for something greater. This is why patience is so important. God is never in a hurry, but He's always on time. Our job is to trust His timing, even when it doesn't align with our own. It's human nature to want things immediately, but God sees the bigger picture. He knows what lies ahead, and He's protecting you from stepping into something prematurely. If you trust Him during the waiting, He'll not only open the door, but also ensure that it leads to blessings far greater than you imagined. We need to stay spiritually attuned so we can recognize the doors God is opening. Not every opportunity is from Him. Some doors may look good on the surface, but lead to dead ends. That's why it's important to seek His guidance in every decision. Pray for wisdom and clarity, and trust that He'll give you discernment to know which doors are part of His plan. One of the most powerful things you can do in this process is to align your imagination with your faith. Picture the door opening. See yourself stepping into the blessing you've been praying for. Speak it out in faith. I know the right door is going to open for me. I know God is preparing something amazing. When you align your thoughts and words with His promises, you create an atmosphere for miracles. Remember that waiting is not just about what's coming, it's also about what God is doing in you right now. He's building your faith, strengthening your character, and teaching you lessons that will serve you for the rest of your life. The waiting season is where you grow the most. It's where you develop the endurance and wisdom to handle the blessings on the other side of the door. So if you're in a season of waiting, don't be discouraged. The door you're asking for will open in God's perfect timing. Until then, keep believing, keep preparing, and keep trusting. What God has planned for you is bigger than anything you can imagine. When that door opens, you'll look back and see that every delay, every detour, and every moment of waiting was worth it. God is faithful, and He will not fail you. Get ready, because when He opens the door, it will lead to blessings that exceed your greatest expectations. There's something powerful about believing that the door you've been praying for will open at just the right time. It's easy to get discouraged when we don't see things moving as quickly as we'd like. We might think that the silence means God has forgotten us, or that the opportunity we're hoping for isn't going to happen. But let me encourage you today, just because you don't see anything happening doesn't mean God isn't working. The door is not locked, it's just not time yet. Faith is the foundation of this journey. It's the assurance that even when we can't see the way forward, God is orchestrating something beautiful behind the scenes. He knows what's best for you. When you trust Him fully, you can rest in the knowledge that what's meant for you will never miss you. Delays and detours are not the end of the story. They are part of the process. God doesn't just think about the moment you're in right now. He's already looking down the road, preparing you for the opportunities to come. One thing we often forget is that preparation is a vital part of God's plan. The waiting season is not wasted time. It's the time when God works on us, helping us grow stronger, wiser, and more equipped to handle the blessings He has in store. Sometimes the reason the door hasn't opened is because we're not ready yet. He's molding our character, teaching us patience, and building a solid foundation so that when the blessing comes, we can handle it. Think about a builder constructing a house. Before the walls can go up, the foundation has to be laid. If the foundation isn't solid, the house won't stand. In the same way, God is building your foundation in the waiting period. He's teaching you lessons, developing your faith, and ensuring that when the door opens, you'll be ready to step into all He has prepared for you. While you're waiting, it's important to remain faithful in the small things. Sometimes we're so focused on the big door we want God to open that we overlook the opportunities He's already placed in front of us. Maybe you're praying for a better job, but God wants to see how faithful you'll be with the position you have now. Maybe you're asking for a new relationship, but God is waiting for you to grow in self-love and confidence first. When you prove that you can handle what's in front of you, it shows God that you're ready for more. Patience is key during this time. God's timing is always perfect. He's never too early and He's never too late. But sometimes His timing doesn't align with ours. It can be frustrating to wait when you feel like you're ready for the next step. But what we have to remember is that God knows what we don't. He sees the bigger picture. There may be things He's protecting you from or aligning for your good that you can't see right now. That's why it's so important to trust the process. Trust that God is preparing not just you, but the circumstances, the people, and the resources that will come together at the perfect time. When the door opens, it won't be something you have to force. It will open easily, and you'll know that it was God's hand making the way for you. Another thing to keep in mind is that not every opportunity is from God. Some doors may look appealing, but aren't part of His plan for your life. That's why it's so important to seek His guidance and stay spiritually attuned. Pray for wisdom and clarity. Ask Him to show you which doors to pursue and which ones to walk away from. When you align your heart with His will, you'll be able to recognize the right opportunities when they come. Imagination plays a key role in this journey. You have to see it in your mind before it becomes reality. Visualize the door opening. Picture yourself stepping into the blessing. Speak it out in faith. I know God is working on my behalf. I know He's opening the right doors for me. When you align your thoughts, words, and actions with faith, you create an atmosphere for God to move. Don't lose sight of the growth that happens during the waiting season. It's easy to become so focused on the destination that we forget about the journey. But the journey is where God does His greatest work. He's shaping you, strengthening you, and preparing you for what's ahead. When you finally walk through that door, you'll look back and realize that the waiting wasn't a delay, it was preparation. So if you're in a season of waiting right now, don't be discouraged. Keep believing, keep preparing, and keep trusting. God hasn't forgotten you. He's working behind the scenes, lining up everything you need for the perfect moment. When that door opens, it will be bigger, better, and more fulfilling than anything you could have imagined. Get ready, because when God opens the door, no one can shut it, and the blessings that follow will be more than you ever dreamed.